Across forests, deserts, and mountain ranges around the world, there are stones that simply shouldn't be where they are. Massive blocks weighing hundreds of tons, fitting together with uncanny precision, some cut with millimeter accuracy, and all of it done thousands of years ago. No cranes, no engines, no tools that we know of. You'll find them in Baalbek, Lebanon, in Puma, Punku, Bolivia, in Sacsayhuamán, Peru. Places where so-called primitive people supposedly built structures that modern engineers still can't recreate. But there's one question no one seems willing to answer. Who actually built these things? Mainstream archaeology offers weak explanations. They talk about ropes, pulleys, brute strength, and endless patience, but none of that accounts for laser-sharp cuts, stones shaped like clay, or the perfect cosmic alignments. These monuments are older than any known empire, and they seem to have been built by someone who understood science, vibration, and intention, someone who vanished without leaving a name. What we see today might just be the outer shell of something far greater. Entire cities buried underground, structures that may have worked like antennas, machines, or even multidimensional temples. What if these megaliths are the last remnants of a civilization that existed before history began, or of beings who weren't entirely human? Maybe. The world as we know it was built by forgotten hands, and we're just living in the ruins. Subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a like, because what you're about to discover might just make you never look at a stone the same way again. Scattered among forgotten ruins are stone blocks weighing dozens, sometimes even hundreds of tons. In the city of Baalbek, Lebanon, there's a monolith known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It weighs over 1,000 tons. No modern crane could move it safely, and yet there it is, perfectly positioned atop other equally massive stones. No one knows how it got there, or who lifted it into place. In Sacsayhuamán, Peru, stones weighing up to 200 tons fit together like pieces of a giant puzzle. No mortar, no gaps, no mistakes. The precision of the cuts suggests a level of geometry and engineering far beyond what is typically credited to the local cultures of the time. These blocks aren't flat. They have multiple faces, curved angles, and interlocking joints, as if they were molded or carved using a technology that could alter the density of the stone itself. In Puma, Punku, Bolivia, you'll find stones with perfect 90-degree angles, identical drill holes, and carved reliefs with millimetric precision, and they're made of diorite, one of the hardest rocks on Earth, comparable to diamond. All of this and supposedly built without metal tools. The official explanation seems blind in the face of the evidence, because in those stones lies the signature of something far more advanced. These structures don't look like simple temples or walls. They look like foundations, bases, supports for something much larger that was either dismantled or hidden. Maybe those giant blocks once supported technological structures. Maybe they were part of a resonance system. Or maybe they're all that's left of a civilization that vanished. The question remains, solid and unmoving, like the stones themselves. If we can't move these blocks today, how did they do it thousands of years ago with primitive tools? Maybe the answer isn't in what we've been taught, but in what we were never allowed to know. The megalithic walls of Puma, Punku, Sacsayhuamán, and Ollantaytambo look like they were built by giants. But the most intriguing part isn't the size of the stones, it's the perfection with which they fit together. No mortar, no cement. Some blocks have as many as 12 sides, joined with such precision that not even a sheet of paper fits between them. And even after earthquakes, centuries of rain and erosion, they remain locked in place. Modern engineers have tried to replicate these joints using today's tools. None have succeeded. The stones appear to have been softened and molded on site, as if the material itself had been liquefied by vibration, extreme heat, or some kind of molecular manipulation. Some believe these civilizations mastered acoustic technology, able to move and shape matter using sound, a forgotten science, or maybe a hidden one. Perfectly straight cuts, impossible angles, and symmetrical holes with identical depth, all found in places where, according to mainstream archaeology, ancient people used nothing but hammers and stones. But nothing about these constructions looks primitive. Quite the opposite, it looks intentional, calculated, executed with mastery, as if the builders weren't experimenting, but simply repeating ancient knowledge. These same techniques appear all over the world, in cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time, from Japan to Bolivia, from Egypt to Indonesia. And yet, the stonework follows the same patterns, as if they all learned from the same teacher. or belonged to a single planet-wide civilization, now forgotten. If humanity lost this technology, then it lost a vital piece of its own story. Maybe we haven't been evolving. Maybe we've been regressing after a massive collapse. Hand the megaliths. They're the final pages of a book that was ripped away from us. A book written in stone, still trying to tell us what really happened. According to the official timeline, human history begins about 5,000 years ago, with the invention of writing. But the stones tell a different story. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to over 12,000 years ago. That's before the pyramids, before agriculture, before history itself. And yet, it features carved columns, astronomical alignments, and intricate symbols. Who built it? And why was it buried? On purpose. The same mystery surrounds the underwater ruins of Yonaguni off the coast of Japan. Massive stepped stones, stairways, and precise angles, all submerged dozens of meters beneath the sea. To be down there, those structures would have to be over 10,000 years old, because sea levels were much lower back then. That would place their builders in an era when, according to science, we were still just hunters and gatherers. But what we're seeing is architecture, its intention, its civilization. In Brazil, in the state of Amapá, the stones of Rego Grande form what looks like an Amazonian Stonehenge, aligned with the solstice, cut with precision, marking time with light. Local archaeologists hesitate to assign it a clear date, but sometimes silence says more than any official report. How many other structures have been ignored or labeled natural just because they don't fit the accepted timeline? Maybe we're walking on top of a forbidden history. And if these monuments are so ancient, why were they hidden? Some, like Göbekli Tepe, were deliberately buried, others destroyed, some erased from maps entirely. Were they buried by natural disasters? Or did someone not want them to be found again? Dates don't lie, but historians hesitate, because admitting that these structures came before everything else is admitting that history is wrong and that before us there was something greater, something we might not have been ready to remember. Across nearly every megalithic site in the world, a disturbing pattern appears. They're aligned with celestial bodies. Stonehenge marks the solstices with pinpoint accuracy. The pyramids of Giza mirror the Orion's belt. The layout of Teotihuacan reflects the Milky Way. This isn't coincidence. It's astronomical knowledge carved into stone. To track the sky's movements so precisely, you'd need to observe the stars for centuries, or already possess the knowledge long before the construction even began. And more than that, these structures were built to last, to resist time and remain aligned for thousands of years, as if to make sure the earth and the heavens would never lose touch, as if to ensure that the message would never be lost. A language written into the cosmos. Some of these constructions align with constellations that were in specific positions 10, 12, even 15,000 years ago. How could they have known that if those civilizations didn't exist yet? The most likely answer is the one most often ignored. Someone came before. Someone left the blueprint. And later, civilizations merely inherited it, restored it, or imitated what was already there. At the Temple of Hathor in Egypt, star maps are carved into the ceiling, maps so precise they were only confirmed with modern telescopes. In Nabta Playa, a circle of stones in the desert marks constellations and celestial events dating back more than 7,000 years. Why such obsession with the stars? Maybe because the stars were portals or coordinates for something that was meant to come or return. These alignments suggest that megaliths weren't just temples, tombs, or markers. They were part of a network, an interface between the sky and the earth, a system designed to tune planetary vibration to cosmic motion. And if that's true, then the ancient builders weren't just looking up. They knew exactly where they were, and more importantly, that's where they were pointing us. Megaliths are spread across the continents, but never randomly. When we map their locations using geodetic data and lines of latitude, a pattern begins to emerge. Many of them align along what are known as ley lines, invisible energy paths that crisscross the planet. Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, they all connect through specific angles and precise distances, as if they were nodes in a planetary grid, a forgotten grid that might still be active. Ley lines have been dismissed by modern science, but they were taken seriously by ancient cultures. Druids, shamans, and Tibetan masters used these paths to meditate, heal, and even communicate across great distances. These roots aren't physical, they're vibrational, and the megaliths may have been placed there to amplify and stabilize the planet's energy, monuments, acting like antennas or portals of frequency. When we start connecting the dots, it becomes clear. Ancient civilizations weren't as isolated as we were taught. They followed a shared knowledge, perhaps inherited from a mother culture that existed before a global cataclysm, or maybe from something external, because no one builds a stone circle in the desert and then repeats the exact same pattern on the other side of the ocean, without a plan and without memory. Some researchers suggest that the very continents might have been mapped using this network, as if the megaliths were markers in an ancient planetary navigation system, or sensors tuned to shifts in human consciousness, waiting, watching, set in place to monitor the awakening of humanity. And if this network is ever reactivated, something ancient might awaken with it, something that still pulses beneath the stones. This invisible connection challenges the idea that each culture built in isolation. Maybe they didn't build at all. Maybe they only rebuilt. Maybe the true architects came long before any known civilization, and they left behind a map, a code, a reminder, carved in stone for those who know how to read it. At these megalithic sites, we don't just find stones, we find traces of the impossible, cut marks that look like they came from industrial saws, perfectly cylindrical drill holes, symmetrical channels etched into granite and diorite, stones so hard they can only be shaped with tools of extreme durability. But no such tools have ever been found near the ruins. It's as if the builders used equipment that vanished with time, or that was never meant to be discovered. Independent archaeologists suggest that the ancients may have mastered sound vibration to soften stone. Others talk about magnetic resonance, laser technology, or even molecular manipulation of matter. At Puma Punku, some of the cut marks resemble those made today by CNC machines, and in Abydos, Egypt, there are carvings that appear to show helicopters and flying machines. Are they symbols, or actual depictions of real, forgotten technology? Vedic, Egyptian, and Mayan texts speak of tools of light, singing instruments, and machines that obey the mind. Descriptions that sound like science fiction to us now, but maybe they're distorted memories of a lost technological age, a time when humanity didn't rely on brute force, but on vibrational knowledge. If these tools once existed, where did they go? Or were they taken by those who knew too much? Some say governments, especially the United States, have recovered fragments of this lost technology, often after secret excavations or accidental discoveries in remote regions. These materials, they claim, are being studied in hidden facilities, far from the public eye. The goal? To replicate what time, or someone, worked hard to erase, and to control its use forever. The absence of these tools is no coincidence. It's a strategic silence, because if an ancient civilization possessed technology we're only beginning to understand, then our timeline is broken, and we may not be the first advanced society, just the most forgotten. Faced with monuments made of 100-ton blocks, impossible cuts and cosmic alignments, mainstream archaeology often sidesteps the obvious. It rarely updates its theories. It avoids the hard questions. And when out-of-the-box ideas emerge, they're quickly labeled as pseudoscience. But why? What's being protected or erased? Independent researchers who challenge the official narrative face censorship, ridicule, and funding cuts. Those who speak of ancient technology, vibration, or advanced contact are pushed out of academia. Reports are buried, discoveries discredited, sites closed off for official research. It doesn't feel like science. It feels like containment, a script to keep the past under control. Many of these sites are controlled by institutions that limit access. Photography is restricted, excavations are limited, measurements and deeper investigations are often prohibited. In Egypt, tour guides are instructed not to discuss alternative theories with visitors. In Bolivia, large parts of Puma Punku remain improperly studied. Behind the scenes, a pattern emerges. Not knowing is safer than discovering. Governments, like that of the United States, have shown military interest in certain megalithic sites. Satellites track vibrational anomalies in specific zones, and rumors suggest that some of these formations still emit signals, even after thousands of years. At that point, it's no longer archaeology. It becomes a matter of security, of information control, of power over the past. Science should investigate this, but instead, it chooses to stay silent, Because if we admit these monuments were built by a far more advanced civilization, the entire modern narrative collapses. And maybe that's why the greatest secret isn't in the stones themselves, but in the space between them. Silence is the loudest proof. Who shaped stone like clay? Who aligned monuments to the stars thousands of years before modern astronomy? Were they forgotten people, visitors from other worlds, or something in between? Many ancient traditions speak of gods who descended from the sky, taught humanity, built great works, and vanished. But maybe they weren't gods. Maybe they were the builders. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, beings from the stars who created cities with mathematical precision. In South America, the Viracochas arrived from the sea and built the first civilizations. In Egypt, the Neteru taught architecture, writing, and astronomy. These beings are not described as myths, but as masters, human-like in form, but with knowledge that surpassed anything human. Were they the same across all cultures? Some researchers propose that the builders were not extraterrestrials in the traditional sense, but the remnants of a pre-human civilization that flourished before the last ice age. They mastered vibration, energy, geology, and time, and they knew a cataclysm was coming, so they built monuments that would survive it all. Eternal markers, meant to remind the future of who they were. Others go further, claiming the builders still exist, hidden in underground realms or veiled in parallel dimensions. Their descendants may still guard this knowledge, passing fragments of it through secret societies. Could they be the true architects of our world? Those who once mapped the earth and then vanished into shadow? We may never see their faces, but their fingerprints are everywhere, in stone, in symbols, in vibration. They didn't sign their work with words. They signed it with the impossible. And now maybe they're waiting for us to see it again. Something is changing. Ordinary people all around the world are starting to feel it. Recurring dreams of giant stones, ancient ruins, unknown symbols, an unexplained pull toward lost civilizations, old maps, buried truths. It's as if the megalith are calling. And finally, some are listening. These structures weren't just built to endure. They were built to be rediscovered at the right time. Every solar alignment, every resonant vibration, every silent stone we see is part of a code, not to be read, but to be felt and activated by awakened consciousness. Monks, shamans, quantum physicists, engineers, voices from different fields are starting to converge. They're pointing in the same direction. To the same monuments, they see a missing link between spirituality and science, between vibration and form, between sound and stone, and that link is resurfacing. The megaliths hold knowledge that can't be taught, only remembered. They are mirrors of who we once were, and gateways to who we still can become. And when a critical mass of humanity reconnects with this knowledge, something will be released. The real reason all of this was built. And the world will never be the same. The awakening has already begun, and the monuments are still here, waiting, solid, silent, unbreakable, not as ruins of the past, but as markers of the future. Of the true future we forgot we already lived. You've just crossed continents and millennia, following the clues of a past left untold. The massive stones, the impossible joins, the alignments with the stars are not random. They are the marks of knowledge that was never meant to be lost, or worse, was erased, because to remember changes everything. If the builders once existed, they knew. They understood the Earth's energy, the language of the cosmos, the math of the soul. They raised machines of stone, not to conquer but to preserve, to protect a code, a memory, a promise. And every megalith that still stands is a reminder. We were once more than we are today. Archaeology is afraid to admit it. Governments refuse to speak. But monuments don't need permission to exist. They're right there, fixed, immortal. And the more they're buried in silence, the louder they scream. This world was built on ruins, and maybe on lies, but the stones still stand, waiting for someone to finally see. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and leave a like, because the next mystery might be right beneath your feet.